Welcome to AP Taylor Swift, the podcast for Swifties with English degrees or those that just overanalyze everything. Each episode, we dive into a deep reading of Taylor Swift's lyrics to uncover the literary themes, references, and inspirations behind the songs to better understand and interpret why Taylor's songs resonate so deeply with fans. I'm Monsi, a Master of Liberal Arts student, marketer, and all-round lit nerd, and I'm joined today by my two co-hosts.
I'm Jen. I'm a former English teacher, a once aspiring medievalist, and now tech marketer.
And I'm Jody, former psych major turned marketer and resident theater kid on the podcast.
And we are your unofficial professors of Taylor Swift. We did all the extra credit, then got graded on a curve, so now we're here to teach some lessons, whether we're qualified or not. For this week's deep dive, we are going to be digging in deeper into the song Wonderland. So in our previous episode, we all brought songs to the table that talked about Alice in Wonderland within Taylor Swift lyrics. And then we decided that Wonderland, just being so obviously about Alice in Wonderland, would be a great one to dig into because Taylor very deliberately has dropped hints throughout this song about what it's about. So with that, I want to open it up. I spoke about this song a little bit, Jody and Jen, in our previous episode, but I would love to hear your thoughts about Wonderland because I did not have a chance to hear that.
Yeah, I think for the deep dives too, one question that we can continually ask ourselves is what is the author trying to accomplish through this text? So we can keep it on the back burner as we wink, wink, go down rabbit holes in this conversation. I knew I was going to say that at some point. So
it's going to happen many times.
Yeah, it's fine. And another question we can consider that I think is interesting is who is the speaker here? We can decide that we think it is Taylor Swift, but it doesn't have to be. Who are they talking to? And then what are they trying to accomplish? So those are some questions we can consider. And I don't have an answer for that, but what I thought is interesting is the immediate opener is flashing lights, which I thought was a fascinating opener for this, and immediately sets the stage, which I think is an interesting way to set the stage here. So, do we think this is a paparazzi? So yes, it is Taylor Swift. It's someone famous. And why is she starting with flashing lights to go into a very nonsensical imaginary world that isn't really about lights at all?
Well, flashing lights and we took a wrong turn. So driving, to me, it came up with driving. And then we fell down the rabbit hole. So you start very grounded in reality and then go into the rabbit hole. I think the thing that immediately stands out to me beyond the very obvious Wonderland references is we took a wrong turn. We fell down the rabbit hole. She's with somebody. So you ask who is the speaker? She is not alone. This entire time she is with someone. And that is very different from Alice's adventures in Wonderland when she is entirely alone the entire time, which is not something I thought of until right this second.
I will point out too, yes, this is Taylor Swift singing, she identifies as a woman, singing female voice. There is nothing in the text that determines the gender of the speaker that I can see.
Doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter. The only thing that even tells you what their relationship is to one another. You held on tight to me. It's kind of innocuous. I felt your arms twisting around me.
There's green eyes, and in the chorus,
two in love to think straight. So they're in love.
Well, she does address, she says, didn't you flash your green eyes at me? Didn't you calm my fears with a Cheshire Cat smile? And so it's interesting because the Cheshire Cat is obviously a character in Alice in Wonderland, but she's likening the smile to whoever her companion is. So
I wouldn't want the Cheshire Cat as my companion. That's not.
I was gonna say, calm is not the word I would use. That Cheshire Cat smile is not a calming smile.
I literally bolded that. Did anyone find the Cheshire Cat calming? Is it?
No, the Cheshire Cat's creepy AF.
Right.
The Cheshire Cat might be the reason why I don't like cats. I know that's controversial on a Taylor Swift podcast, but
get out of here.
I know, right?
I know.
Actually, that's very interesting.
There is a slight difference in the actual book from the movies, I think. The movie, The Cheshire Cat, is like super creepy. But the book, I actually think it's still creepy, but there are parts where she's looking for the cat. She's like, where did the cat go? Like, I think she does find the cat as a comforting figure in the book.
Because she has a cat at home.
Yes. She's
like the only thing she can.
So here is the first evidence, in my opinion, that Taylor is referencing the book, maybe not the movies. I think that calming of the Cheshire Cat smile is really interesting. It's also her companion that she has tumbled down with. So in the story, the Cheshire Cat is a part of Wonderland. Here, she is kind of like tumbling down. It makes me wonder, who do we think the author is identifying with from Alice in Wonderland in these lyrics? Is the author Alice, or is it someone else?
That's a really interesting question too. Because yeah, the cat is a little bit more helpful in the book. In the live action too, the cat is actually quite helpful. Still creepy, but like very key to the story. And I could be mixing them all up now. I consumed all of this like this same day. But the Cheshire Cat seems, in the stories that I recall correctly, exists as part of the story, but he's also kind of like sort of omniscient. Like he just seems to kind of know everything that's going on and is very like confident and is very just like never stressed out. Like a lot of other people are not even stressed out, but they're like chaotic or, you know, saying crazy things. And then the cat is just kind of like, yeah, this is Wonderland. This is how it is. Let me say some mysterious things to you, then like peace out. See you later.
So she does say, I should have slept with one eye open at night. And that comes after, I felt your arms twisting around me. I should have slept with one eye open at night. Is she saying that she should have watched out for this person that she fell down the rabbit hole with, that she's relating to the Cheshire Cat?
I'm interpreting that she was so falsely secured by this person's arms around her that she didn't bother to be alert for herself. And it's like, even though you were hugging me at night and even though I had your comfort, like I should have looked out for myself, maybe.
I think one thing that was interesting to me too, going back earlier, fell down a rabbit hole, you held on tight to me because nothing's as it seems, and spinning out of control. I thought that was really interesting because in the book had so much more about the fall than I remembered. And yes, it's chaos. Alice never seems like fully out of control. She like picks something up off a shelf while she's falling. She puts it back on a shelf. She gets bored. She's just kind of like thinking about things. So I thought that was a like interesting take if we're going from the book of like, it wasn't really out of control in the book, but she was falling alone. So falling with someone else might be the differentiator here.
But then whoever she's with leaves. I reached for you in the bridge. Love a good bridge. I reached for you, but you were gone. I knew I had to go back home. You searched the world for something else to make you feel like what we had. And in the end, in Wonderland, we both went mad.
Yeah, so there's a part of the song where they're lost for a little while. And then there's a realization that they have been being watched this whole time. And then there's the companion disappears and the speaker is trying to figure out where that companion went and realize that they need to get home on their own. I think like in those three sections, you kind of experience some different emotions. That first one is the spinning out of control, falling down. The companion piece is new, but there is a sense of, didn't they tell us not to rush into things? So even as they're losing control, they were warned. The word flash makes an appearance multiple times. There's the flashing lights. Didn't you flash your green lights at me? I think it feels like something pushed them to making that wrong turn, to causing the tumble. They were warned, they fell anyways. Then there's the second part where they're lost in Wonderland, feels kind of awesome, but kind of awful. The never better, but never worse. And then there's the final piece, which is like, realize they were being watched and they need to get out of there.
Yeah, two very small thoughts about that. That was like, those are the exact sections. But one thing you were saying there too is could this author be talking about a specific person with green eyes? Possibly, but I also think the color green is really interesting here. Green means go. So it's a, didn't they tell us don't rush into things? To me, that's a stop. They told us we shouldn't do this, but you flashed your green eyes at me and we went anyways. And then this is just another literary reference, but I keep thinking every time Life Was Never Worse but Never Better of A Tale of Two Cities, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And that's where you have like things are going cool in, you know, the UK things were going all right, I think, but France was the French Revolution, so everyone was dying, and I mean things weren't like great in the UK. The US had just left and they had, you know, whatever, King George or whatever he was. But it's this idea of like there's this duality to existence, and things are going really well, but they're also really terrible. And what I am reading as in the song, which can be open for interpretation, is things were never worse around her. The people are watching, the lights are flashing, but it was never better when the green eyes are what are flashing. I also think the flashing is really interesting. Flashing lights, bad thing. Flash your green eyes at me, that was a good
Isn't
thing.
there a green light in Gatsby, the end of the Great Gatsby?
Yes, there's the green light is the flashing light on the opposite pier, yes. Daisy's pier that Gatsby's looking at. Yes.
Another Taylor favorite.
Yeah.
The Lost in Wonderland part where there's strangers watching is interesting because we talked about Wonderland as this strange but amazing place. It's kind of a transition between childhood and adulthood. And when Alice is in Wonderland, there's nobody watching her. I mean, we're watching her, but we're the viewers. But there's no... Is she being watched in the story, or was she just discovering that on her own?
No.
I would argue she's being watched by the people she runs into.
The Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, and like, I mean, like everyone kind of, they meet her and they tell her what to do. Like, all she wants to do, I was thinking about this again with the song, all Alice wants to do is find the garden that she saw through the door.
That's all she wants the whole time. That's all she wants.
But every time she runs into someone, they're like, no, you should go here. No, you need to do this. No, take my weird star pig baby. Or whatever it was that the Duchess had, you know, like she keeps being like just kind of forced into these other paths, and every time she gets away from people and she like resets, she's like, okay, where's that garden? Like she's still just trying to find this beautiful garden, but it's all of these people that are like stopping her.
She has a goal. She knows what she wants, and everything else in her environment is throwing obstacles and making it harder for her to get to her goal or making her forget her goal.
Sorry, so I'm like, she's kind of encountering a bunch of people who keep telling her things, but it doesn't feel like there's a character that's like spying on her. I was trying to think it was like, was the queen like always looking? But
the queen doesn't show up till the end.
Everyone in Wonderland is occupied with their own lives. Yes. She is just stumbling through it and trying to find her way. But here, like she has a companion, and she realizes that they were being watched. To me, is like, in this very tumultuous time when they're stumbling through, trying to figure out things, they also are being observed the entire time. And so all of the crazy interactions that they're having, all of the absurd characters they meet, they're also being watched through all of that and maybe critiqued.
So context that could be relevant here too, though. In the live action film that came out not long before 1989, she was very actively being watched. So there's like, in the live action film, there's basically a prophecy that the Alice who was there as a child needs to come back as an adult to save them all. And there's a moment where she falls.
Wild.
I know.
Sorry.
It's one of those movies where I'm like, I can't recommend this to anyone, but I do think it changed my life, so I have very weird feelings about it. But like, she's like literally falls down the rabbit hole, and she does the exact same thing where she like can't get through the door, so she gets small, and the key's on the table, so she gets too big, and they're watching through a keyhole. Like everyone in Wonderland is watching her, and they're like, is it her? Is it Alice? And the whole theme of that film is like everyone's watching her, being like, is she the right Alice? Is she going to be the one that saves us? So if we're taking that as one of the inspirations, then it is very much applicable. With the book, no. So.
This song stresses me out, and it didn't before this conversation. And I think that this is indicative of Alice. This is like perfect metaphor for Alice in Wonderland. Like on the surface, this is like a great pop song. It's about Wonderland. We're in love. Oh my God. And then you start looking at it and you're like, oh, this is stressful. Like, this is not only is she being watched, she's being chased, but also like the person she's with, her companion, actually like is not helpful and then disappears. And like, this song is very stressful. And now I'm like, are you okay, Taylor?
Well, and that's the thing. I think the interesting thing about her songs is that she uses lyrics and the music in combination to do something. And in this instant, the music is so upbeat, very happy, and like lots of repetition of the word Wonderland, like.
I would add a third layer to that, which is the branding and the imagery used together, right? So she's masterful at this. She makes, you just said it, she makes her lyrics say one thing, her music say another, the music says another. The branding is what sets the tone for what you're supposed to feel or think. But then when you actually get to the lyrics and the music, it often tells you a very different story. I think Reputation is really the first time she did this explicitly. I know we're talking about a song that's on 1989, but there I feel like the imagery for the era plus the music both tell the same story, and just sometimes the lyrics differ, like in Wonderland. Reputation, the imagery was dark, it was brooding, moody, but then the songs were often very upbeat and about love and the opposite. So I think she's masterful at taking those three elements and using them to take your mind in one place and tell you what she wants you to feel. But if you actually take the time to dive deeper, like we're doing here on this podcast, you learn a lot more about what's actually going on.
I think that's a great point, because this song didn't have a music video, but in the
I wish it did.
Yes, but in the 1989 universe, it's not too late. 1989 Taylor's version.
Oh, yes, coming soon.
I was just gonna say that in the 1989 universe, so to speak, there are buildings, there are cars. She's in New York. I mean, we start off with flashing lights, taking a wrong turn, this green light. Like, you're instantly, like, the branding is there. It's almost like,
yes,
Wonderland could be New York. It could be this like crazy
welcome
new place.
to New York.
Yeah,
it's been waiting for you. It is crazy, and that is a good metaphor, actually.
And there's always this. She knows that she shouldn't have rushed into things. They knew it could never last forever. There's a lot of self-chiding again that we talked about previously. But it is like all in this branding. The branding is pop, like pop sounds. It's urban in a city. It
gives very like moving to New York City after graduating from college vibes.
Yeah.
Where you feel, and that's what the song feels like to me, that you move to New York, you have this world, this life, it is fast, it is fun. But I can't tell you how many people move out of New York after 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. Like, that's the thing about living in New York City. If people come here, experience it, have that moment of their lives, and then they leave. It doesn't last forever.
And she does talk about having to go back home. Like, New York is so not a home for many people. It's
for most
just
people,
like a
right?
place you go.
Because you have to have that part of your life. You have to try it. I wonder if that's a metaphor for her trying pop. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this was her first full pop album. She's trying it. Does she feel then like she has to go back home, back to country music? We just read so many layers into this song.
I love all those interpretations. I think I am reading it. I really like the New York City version. I'm definitely going to think about that a lot. But I think I have decided that this relationship, whoever her companion is actually a very unhealthy situation. The more I'm reading into it, that I felt your arms twisting around me. That is a loaded word. Twisted is very loaded. Is like, was this because there's we have a twisted love. We had a crooked love in a straight line now. Like, there's a lot of this, and whatever the other song is, like this like crooked, twisted, that comes up a lot in 1989. But arms twisting around me, is that to hold her or to like contain her?
It's
Interesting
all
question.
fun and games until somebody loses their mind. Like, I agree with you. I think this is a relationship that she thought that like at first sounded wonderful and like what we thought Wonderland would be. And then you realize, oh shit, this ain't it. This is dark. You are not the person. Like, I'm actually by myself.
Yeah, and it's too in love to think straight. And so it's this like being so in love with someone that it's like this isn't a good situation. Like Wonderland, everything is not what it seems. Like it seems fun and it's cool, but you keep going into it and you're like, oh, things are not good here. But you're still like so in love that you're like, it was never worse. It was never better. Like running hot and cold, like all that kind of stuff. That's the way it reads me.
Found it, but got lost in it. Like,
I think it's love. I think Wonderland is love. I know made a really good argument 5 seconds ago for Wonderland being New York City. I'm changing my mind. I think Wonderland is love. No, New York City. I think what she's talking about when she's saying we found Wonderland, you and I got lost in it, it's love. It is.
Can we talk about we both went mad? Because in Wonderland, there is the "we're all mad here" very famous line. This is after the bridge. So the bridge.
This is the bridge, yeah.
This is the bridge. I reached for you, but you were gone. I knew I had to get back home. You searched the world for something else to make you feel like what we had. And in the end, in Wonderland, we both went mad.
Not a good toxic relationship. Alert. Ding, ding, ding.
But acknowledgement that we both went mad.
Yeah, that's growth.
And then you come out of there and we pretended it could last forever. I think like does Alice ever go mad, or is it that she realizes everyone else there is mad? Like, this to me is going back to the question. I mean, the question here to me is like, is the speaker Alice or is it someone else? Like, is it almost like a prequel? I'm imagining like the Cheshire Cat and the Mad Hatter's adventures or something. Like imagining like some companions that went down into Wonderland, got lost. It's not
It's whoever found it afterwards. I don't know that it's Alice at all. I feel like this is someone whoever came next, right? Like, is Wonderland only for Alice?
Right. It's like we found it, we got lost in it. We went mad.
It wasn't working for me. Like, Alice got out.
Yeah. They got lost in it. I don't know, that line, and we pretended it could last forever with this whole conversation, that line just kind of minorly broke my heart of like, I don't know, I've been married to the same person for 10 years, and I love him very much. So I'm very happy in my marriage. You say that
every episode.
I know. I feel like I don't have a massive dating history, is why I keep giving that. Like, I've been married for a long time. So when I keep making romantic things about friendships, it's just, I don't know. I'll tell Chris that I need like a 6-month break so I can go date people. It's for work. I need to do research. I'm so sorry. God, I would never do that. But it's, even those moments, like I can think of friendships or just things in my life where it's like the parts that are good are so good, but it's not good for me. Mm-hmm. And you have those moments where you just pretend like it's going to last forever. You know it won't, but you just need that moment where you're just going to imagine that it's going to last forever. That just really broke my heart as we were discussing this.
Right? These songs, like, I go into them thinking one thing and I come out of it thinking something completely different, which I think speaks to the literary quality of her writing. I think when you listen to a lot of pop music, it's very surface, and sometimes when you actually listen to the lyrics, they don't mean anything at all. And I'm fascinated when people say like, oh, I don't really pay attention to the lyrics when I listen to music, because that is like the first thing that I pay attention to. And I think that's why I love Taylor's music, but that's also why I can look at this song that I've been listening to for how many years now? This came out in 2014. And today feel very differently about it after this conversation.
Sorry, I know we need a wrap, but I was just, that one line, we pretended it can last forever, actually does repeat as a part of the chorus. And to your point, I do think that the meaning of that changes every time she says it. In the beginning, it's new and exciting, and we pretended it could last forever. And then you realize there's strangers watching and it's kind of twisted, and we pretended it could last forever. But then we both went mad. And I think in the song, I can't remember, but I feel like she slows down when she's singing it too. Like, I think
Yeah, she
there's
does.
like a pause, and it's like, and we pretended it could last forever. Pause. Maybe I'm imagining that, but I feel like that happens. And so there is like definitely like this build up to a line that's repeated, but the meaning kind of becomes more and more depressing.
Yeah. No, it does. Well, to wrap, do we want to each say kind of what do we think is the main message of this? I think to me, this is very much, it's a story about falling in love in a way that the love is so good, but something about it is so bad. Maybe it's the people. Maybe I read it as a story that if they could live in isolation in Wonderland, they actually could be really happy together. But because of everything else happening, it's going to fall apart. And that's why they pretend it can last forever. You can't actually live in isolation with someone. And I mentally, as I'm going through this, I almost feel like I'm starting to see like illicit affairs as the after effect of this, of going back and like, I can see colors I can't see with anyone but you spoke languages I can't speak. There were those moments, but it was destined to end. And that's the part they wanted to last forever, but it wouldn't, because life exists, everything around you exists, and for some reason either it caused toxicity within the relationship or it just created unsustainable situations for the relationship to move forward, that Wonderland just couldn't exist. It just couldn't last as long as they wanted it to. That's how I decided to read the song.
I definitely see this as almost like star-crossed lovers who couldn't be together due to outside forces as well, kind of similar to Jen's interpretation. But I see the paparazzi as being like a major villain here. Just the flashing lights, the watching. I know we try to stay away from Taylor's actual personal life, so without getting too speculative, I do think that this is a story about two people who potentially were both very high profile, both being watched. It's not one of them being watched, it was both. And for a little while, they could just avoid it and ignore it and pretend like it was not there. They got lost in their own world, but the reality catches up to them at some point. They have to kind of come out and come back to reality and realize that it could never work. Like, you could never stay in Wonderland because there were just too many other forces that be. But the part that I really love that I maybe never paid attention to as much is the "we both went mad" to me hints at permanent change coming out of this. And so not only is it a story about the two star-crossed lovers who were kind of pulled apart due to external circumstances, but the fact that they were forever changed after that experience, and the fact that no matter what they do after that point, this experience in Wonderland permanently altered the way they think. And I think that is something that I am finding to be very, very powerful coming out of this.
I'm on the same path, kind of. I mean, I think this is a song about a relationship that burned fast, burned bright, and then burned out, right? Within the third line, the second line is they took a wrong turn, right? Like, so right away, you know that this relationship's going down, and then it's just a matter of why and how. It's, well, they rushed into things. You were really charming. You flashed your green eyes at me. We got curious. We thought it was always going to be new and exciting, and then it turns out there are going to be these outside forces. There are going to be other people. I don't know that it's necessarily paparazzi, but just that you're never actually alone in a relationship as much as it should be about just the two people in it. There's family, there's friends, there's life that happens around you that often influences the world that you two have together. And sometimes those whispers, what other people are saying about you and your life, get really loud, and they can cause doubt or cause fear. And in the end, it, just it wasn't enough, and you both kind of went from madly in love to just mad, and it did not last forever.
Never worse, never better.
Never better in Wonderland, which never going to think of Wonderland the same way again.
Ugh, I still love this song so much. I mean, I also just want one last thing is very clever of her to use this literary reference. We all came to the same conclusion somewhat, like minor differences in interpretation, but it feels very obvious what this song is about because she has used literary references that are just very, very
Explicit.
clear, explicit. Yeah. And I think it was like clever to hide maybe some very complex emotions that she was feeling about a situation that may have been very public in the media or otherwise known, but like to put it in something that was so easily understandable to make sure that there was no misunderstanding what was happening. I think she
I mean, that's the whole book too, right? When you look at Alice in Wonderland, like it's a commentary on Victorian era, a commentary on the monarchy and Queen Victoria. There's political messages, right? Like there's so many layers in there, but also a very straightforward story with some fun and some whimsy. And, if you take the time to look deeper, you can go down a rabbit hole.
I feel like that's falling in love too. Some of it is so simple, and then
like it's nice to have a friend.
Complicated. Yeah, it's simple, it's nice, and then love. I think the comparison that we all kind of went to of Love is Wonderland, where on the surface you're like, oh, fun things are happening, but as you're navigating, you're like,
oh,
this
shit.
is complex, this is deep. Some of it's incredible, and some of it's really difficult, and that's growing up is figuring that out too. I think so.
We found it. We found Wonderland.
We found Wonderland together with our love.
That's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Be sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at AP Taylor Swift to stay up to date. And join us next time as we overanalyze and deep dive into the next Taylor Swift.